Hi everyone, welcome to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us this Wednesday afternoon. It's going to be a busy one here in Providence because at City Hall in just about an hour there is going to be the hearing for the Thane Tower proposal, and I'd like to welcome in Brent Runyon with the Providence Preservation Society.
Thanks, Kate. Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming in. I know you were rushing off to City Hall literally after coming right here into the studio. Tell folks, give us a little recap as to where we're at in the battle and what tonight means.
Well, we consider it more of a conversation, right? The conversation is really about what's right for the future of Providence as far as development. But where we are in the process is that the City Planning Commission has sent a recommendation of no to the City Council as far as approving this zoning height change. So tonight the Zoning Committee will have a public hearing, and likely, possibly, at the Rise they will also have a meeting at which they'll take a vote.
Okay.
So there'll definitely be a hearing. There may also be a vote. We're not sure.
So how many folks do you expect turning out this evening?
We expect hundreds of people to be at City Hall, some inside, some outside. I don't know that the Ordinance Committee is going to let this drag on for hours like they do at the City Plan Commission. So I hope as many people who want to speak are allowed to speak.
And so talk a little bit, we've spoken with you about this proposal before. We've heard from folks in the Jewelry District, but talk specifically to PPS's concerns.
Sure. Well, I mean, we have a few concerns. Among them are the fact that the zoning guidelines were just put in place in 2014 after hundreds of hours of citizen input to raise the height limit on that site from 45 feet to 100 feet or 130 feet with bonuses. So that was a really important process to establish the vision for the future of the city, which will change in the future, but right now that's where the vision is. So that's a major issue. How does the City Council give favoritism to one developer for an extremely outside the zoning ordinance change? So that's a major issue. Another issue is the park, how the design addresses the park with this huge parking fortress above the park, which really signals to keep everyone out except those who can afford to live in the building. And then finally, a little bit outside of our purview, but one which I think all citizens of the state should be concerned about, is the fact that developers like predictability, and the city and state have put in place a lot of things to make the process for development in Providence predictable, especially in the 195 land, where the guidelines were put in place to speed development along. 12 projects have been approved. So there's one project that's not meeting the guidelines. This is facing steep opposition. So if we want developers to come here, the guidelines have to be consistent, whoever they are.
So there's going to be the hearing tonight. Again, we've seen what happened at the City Plan Commission, and you talk about that, again, going well over and beyond the height limit. Would there ever be any, in your estimation, I know your views on this project, but any exception to the rule?
Listen, we love some of our local developers, but if they were coming with the same project on this site, we would oppose it on the same grounds. There are other places in Providence where you can get much higher buildings that fit into what the vision for the city is, downtown and along the 195 corridor. So it's really about the current proposal, not the developer, but the exact proposal that's before us. That's all we're responding to.
And again, you're not sure if this evening a vote will be taken or not, and so you said you expect the City Council, as you said, not to let it drag on to the extent that we have seen at other meetings. Have you had conversations with council members about this? We've
had conversations with nearly all of the City Council members, and we're optimistic that they will make the decision that's right for the city, which is to uphold our standards and guidelines and make development predictable and allow development that is good for the public space and the public itself.
And so, as you said, with the vote possibly taking place this evening, this clearly is a pivotal moment. If it's voted down, does that de facto put an end to the project as it stands?
Absolutely not. I mean, the City Council asked for an opinion from the Ordinance Committee, and so any decision that's made will then go to City Council for 2 hearings. So we're urging them to speed the process along, not to delay it, in the interest of the developer and the public.
And if they were to vote in favor of the project, is there any recourse for PPS and the opponents moving forward?
I think it's incumbent upon all citizens of the City of Providence and the State of Rhode Island to let the City Council know that this project is not right for Providence in its current form. And so there will be plenty of opportunity to do that on the August recess, and then into September. We don't know when or if the City Council will take it up.
So we're looking at a bit of a protracted schedule here. Tonight is big on the calendar for both supporters and opponents,
Right.
but we're looking at several weeks to months before we sort of get a definitive vision for what might or might not take place.
That's right. There is one thing on the horizon, which is the 195 Commission has set a deadline of October 18th, I believe, for Thane to get all the approvals necessary. So that certainly is probably looming in their mind. We don't know if an extension could be granted, but that is a date that everyone's looking at currently.
And have your conversations been, as I'm looking outside at one of my future guests who's coming in here, for those folks who are in support of it, saying the city needs the vision, they need someone who's willing to put $250 million of his money on the line, and let's think outside the box. When you have conversations with supporters about it, what's that back and forth usually like?
Right, and it's interesting, some of our biggest supporters at PPS are in favor of this. But we don't always agree on everything, and we don't necessarily agree with the laborers union on this, although we do support them generally. Again, this one developer may get all the breaks needed to build this at the expense of the public interest, but we do think it will slow development down in Providence, or it will open up a Pandora's box that allows any developer to get any spot zoning or favoritism, which throws Providence back to the days when you had to basically purchase favors in order to get what you want. And we don't think that that's good for the future of Providence if we really want good development here. And we saw that in Dick Galvin's letter that came out today. You know, a major developer, a major investor in the city, he's not pleased by this potential.
And so let's talk, it's the last before I know you've got to get over to City Hall. It is interesting, especially in the realm of 195. The 195 Commission was sort of created to be this independent entity, and now we've seen the variances tossed back right into the city purview, which I believe it was intended to sort of leave that politics out at the outset. Are you surprised that this is the road that we've been going down here? Did you envision this when you saw the 195 Commission, that we'd be right back here at City Hall?
Well, it's exactly what you said, and nothing surprises us in Rhode Island or Providence. We're sympathetic to their position. We're sympathetic to the General Assembly and the governor moving this forward. I think that we're disappointed, as I think the City Council is, to have to actually deal with this, because the 195 Commission is supposed to vet projects on their merits, and it's incomprehensible that this one has advanced on its merits alone. So yes, it is disappointing, a little bit perplexing, but not entirely surprising.
Well, we'll see what transpires this evening. Supporters, opponents turning out again for the Fane Tower proposal at Providence City Council. We'll have more on Fane in a little bit, but we're going to take a little break here with our next guest from Providence College and a big national grant. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for the 4 o'clock show. A lot going on here in Providence, folks taking up the Fain Tower proposal at City Hall. But I'd like to welcome my next guest with some big national news, Jamie Lee Lacey with the Providence College Gallery's director and curator. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Big news this week out of Providence College, getting a very prestigious Andy Warhol Foundation grant, $65,000 for an exhibit that is anticipated to open in 2019 beyond Bauhaus. Talk with us about what it means to get this grant, approaching it, and then putting it in the broader context of what students and the public are going to see as a result.
Sure. The Andy Warhol Foundation has a long reputation of supporting some of the most cutting-edge, newest research for exhibitions and public events related to the visual arts. So writing a grant like this is a long process. It takes about a year.
Wow.
We think really carefully about who are the artists that we want to work with, how are we going to take on a topic with a new perspective, and how are we going to think about Andy Warhol's legacy as it relates to making sure that artists are well paid, that artists are able to produce new work, and that artists are able to build scholarship and culture around their work. So that's how we are really approaching this grant.
And so did you have that vision? Did you approach them with the Beyond Bauhaus exhibit and saying this is what we envision if we're able to get the support?
Yes. In fact, the Beyond Bauhaus exhibit focuses on the 100th anniversary of the Bauhaus School, which is a cutting-edge art school in Germany. Started in 1919, and we're looking at artists who really think carefully about the ways that the Bauhaus legacy has lasted. As the viewers may or may not know, Walter Gropius came to New England from the Bauhaus, so we have a really strong link with the Bauhaus. And Providence College specializes in interdisciplinary education. We do that in the galleries as well, so it was sort of a perfect match for us.
So one of only 5 institutions in the New England area to get this, so it's a huge kudos to you and the galleries moving forward. So now that you do have this with eyes onto 2019, what are the next steps?
The next steps are visiting artists around the world. I'm very lucky I get to go to Tel Aviv, to Berlin. I will be in and out of studios here in Providence, in Boston, in New York, and basically thinking about what are the big avant-garde projects we can do with artists, and how can those artists come to Providence College's campus, come to the galleries, and really give our students, our faculty, and the entire city a chance to participate in the process of exhibition making.
Well, I was going to say that's my next question with being at Providence College. I mean, how big is this for the students to have this opportunity as well?
It's pretty exciting for all of us. For the students, they are going to get to work with artists who have shown in museums and galleries all over the world and already made quite a name for themselves. So it will dramatically expand students' networks, but also it will give these artists a chance to think without too many boundaries. We really encourage artists to think less about product and more about process.
Okay.
How did you get to this big grand idea or this simple gesture on the other end of the spectrum? And our students get to see that up front, close. And then also, you know, that was what the Bauhaus was all about, letting artists, trusting artists to be who they want to be and to do anything that they could dream up.
So let's talk about your journey to Providence College and what it's meant to you to be the director and curator there. What's the Providence College Gallery's experience?
The Providence College Gallery's experience it's very similar to a museum experience. You're coming into an exhibition space, bright white walls, but the difference is that because we're on a campus that focuses on interdisciplinary arts, sciences, business, everything is sort of colliding together in interesting ways. So we make sure that the gallery experience is that way. You might come in and see an artist running a science experiment that has a close relationship to the way you might look at painting. For the Beyond Bauhaus exhibition, we'll have a really fabulous artist from Boston named Katerina Burin, who builds architectural environments in the space. So you might even experience what a 1920s German classroom was like inside the gallery space.
And so to the general public, if they visit Providence College galleries, I mean, do they sort of take that all in, that sort of interdisciplinary, holistic approach that PC brings to it? What's it like for the public to walk in?
I think for the public to walk in, it's one of those experiences where you can just have an incredible art experience. You're going to see something either really beautiful or really meaningful. You're going to learn something with accessible texts. But if you want to dive deeper, you can do that through interactive exhibits. We have a pretty special website where we do sort of these layers of research that the public can participate in, much like our students do. So there's many different levels that you can access the programming.
Well, I certainly hope if Providence College officials are watching this, because you got the grant, that maybe a raise might be in order. You know, how much is this going to take up pretty much your time now moving forward?
It will take up a lot of my time. However, we present 7 exhibitions a year, and so we have a whole year of programs before we get to the Beyond Bauhaus exhibition. So we hope that people will come in and see what contemporary artists are thinking about ancient Greece, or how contemporary artists are approaching this particularly interesting political moment, so on and so forth.
So more exhibitions, but this one, again, getting that grant from the Andy Warhol Foundation, will you have officials, will you have an official reception for them when the exhibition kicks off?
Yes, for each exhibition, and we have one exhibition that will be really, really special because it is an online exhibition with virtual reality environments that people all over the world will be able to have a look at, and then we'll have an IRL opening, an in real life opening reception that we hope everyone in Providence will join us at.
So the virtual one is for the Bauhaus, so
Yeah.
again, around the world, people can take part.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, again, looking forward to seeing this, but the big news, again, the Andy Warhol Foundation, $65,000
$65,000.
to help make this a Bauhaus, Beyond Bauhaus exhibition taking place in spring of 19. Jamie Lee Lacey, I appreciate your taking the time to come in here to talk about this.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere. We're going to be back with our next guest here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for the 4 o'clock show. Big news here in Providence at 5 o'clock. The City Council will be having a public hearing on the Fane Tower proposal Now, we did hear from the Providence Preservation Society earlier about their concerns, but we have a big supporter with us. With the Rhode Island Building and Construction Trades, Mike Sabatoni, thank you for coming in today.
Nice to see you again, Kate. Thanks
You've
for
been
having me.
a strong proponent of this throughout the process. Now it goes to the City Council.
That's correct.
To approach the variance requested for the height.
That's correct.
Talk with us about conversations that you've had with council members, and you might not have to name names, but what do you think their receptivity is to the potential to, again, afford this variance change?
I think the majority of the council members are, vetting this process just as they would any other process or project. I think that as we go through this process, and tonight you'll hear testimony from both supporters and and opponents. But I am confident that once all the information is given on the positive impact this project will have overall in the city of Providence, I'm pretty confident that there will be a majority in that council that will support this. And I know that there is a lot of people that are opposed to this for various different reasons, but our support of this is for the positive impact it'll have on the city, on the tax base, on what it'll do for the economy, what it'll do for the construction industry, for the jobs that it'll create, what it'll do for the overall vibrancy of downtown and bring people downtown. So again, it's a process. I welcome the public comment, but I think at the end of the day, once all the pros and cons are laid on the table, I'm pretty confident that the City Council will see that this is an opportunity that they have to consider.
And just as I
positively.
just as I asked Brett Runyon how he responds to folks who are in support of it, what do you say to those opponents? Let's start with the Jewelry District, for instance, that they're the ones who were there living and working around it and just say it's just too big and it's going to just cast too big a shadow. I mean, what's your response to that?
Well, having known firsthand and living this, my office, as you know, is right across the river from the Jewelry District. I used to look out my office at 410 South Main Street on the corner of Wicked and South Main Street and look at this beautiful highway abutment of about 50 feet high and a concrete wall that was strewn with graffiti. And then they did me a favor and they relocated the highway. And I have this beautiful view of the river. And now I have interest in that parcel of land right across the street. And I'm begging someone to come and cast a shadow on my building and obstruct my view of that river for economic development. So I live it every day. I've been working in and around South Main Street for the last 20 years or so. So we're in the community. We actually own 2 buildings on South Main Street, the Laborers International. So we're part of the community. I spend more time on South Main Street than I do in my own home. So, and the Jewelry District and the surroundings. So I know with any change comes opposition. I commend the people in the Jewelry District for a lot of hard work that they've done. And I know there's going to be a big voice for tonight about the City Planning Commission. Well, you know what I have a saying about plans? Plans change, and when they change is when you've got other things of consideration, you reconsider plans. We used the scenario where we relocated the rivers. Well, 80 some odd years ago, 100 years ago, we covered all these rivers up because we thought it was a good plan. Then guess what we did? We uncovered them. So, it's. We're going to be in full support of it. I really think it'll just have a dramatic impact on the city. It'll also send a great message to other developers that Providence really is on the rise. We haven't built an iconic structure in this city, for God knows how long.
And let's talk a little bit about that too, because as Brent had taken the position of that, because the variance is needed here, that he said, well, developers won't know, what exactly the playing field is. What's your response when you hear that from Brent?
Well, it's like any other project. I mean, the building trades is not new to this. No matter what we're looking to support and build, and we pretty much support economic development via construction activity. Every project is different. It goes through a process. Not every project just goes straight through and all of a sudden we're on construction. There's always some aspect of zoning, some aspect of changes, some aspect of design. There's no perfect project that just comes right out of the gate and just goes directly to construction. So there is a process. Some are longer than others. Some are more controversial than others, but this is nothing new when we're looking to construct anything. Buildings, planning for street reconfiguration, sidewalks. I mean, no matter what it is, there's a process to go through. And sometimes those processes need to be reconsidered and variances need to be approved to allow projects to go forward. Airports, you know, landfills, wastewater treatment plants, power plants, which we'll be dealing with tomorrow at the Energy Facility Siting Board. You know, this is nothing new for us.
So let's talk about where we're at, kind of the state of labor in July here in 2018. You know, there's a number of cranes around the city and throughout the state, and we've often talked about sort of where your membership and workers are. I mean, what would you say capacity's at right now? I mean, how many, you know, where are things this year compared to years past?
We are really busy. You know, we're probably, I'd say less than 10% in some locals, like my own local, Labor's local, I'm probably under 5% of unemployment, and but we still, you know, construction is a business where you move on from one thing to the next as you complete projects. So guys come back, they go right back out. We're also talking about you know, increasing our capacities in training. We did double the apprentice classes this year than we did last year. We're going to double that again next year. And probably for the foreseeable. We've got the training infrastructure in place and the investments we've made in our training facilities and our apprenticeship programs. So, you know, we keep one eye on today on what the immediate needs are of our contractors and our clients who are developing these projects, as well as look out, you know, 1 to 3 years and make sure that we continue to bring in people into our industry. So it's a good problem to have. As you know, we were severely impacted by the recession of 2008, and you know, construction was one of the last industries to go into the recession, and we were one of the last ones to come out. So I'd rather have this problem of being extremely busy in recruitment than not enough work for the members that I represent. So we're busy.
And of course, the multi-million-dollar question, we saw the enabling legislation for the POSOGs at the Assembly, but we're in a holding pattern right now. What are you talking with leaders? What are you hearing?
Well, again, I mean, we need the variance from the City Council for the height variance there. I still think that, you know, the number right now is 600 feet. I think as recently one of the articles I read that it'll probably come in a little bit smaller than that, probably around 500 feet, not too much bigger, maybe 75 feet taller than the Superman building right outside the studio here. But you know, it has to go through that process. I know that there is state support. I know there's a lot of business support. I know that you know, there is going to be just overall support, because here's the other thing that happens when you build a project such as this, the impact that it has. You're going to bring people downtown, and people need to dry clean their clothes. They need places to eat. They need to buy coffee. They need to, as well as maybe buy groceries. You could start to see maybe a downtown supermarket and things of that nature. You know, we're sitting in, you know, the old Jewelry District, and there are pockets of residential buildings around here, but this would be one building with a significant impact of residents living in the city that after 5 o'clock do not go home, and they'll need things to do, and they'll need services to be provided. So not only will it have the impact on the construction, on the tax base, but you'll also have a considerable amount of people in one building that will need services, life services, to go along with their residency.
And you talk about being in the shadow of the Superman building here. GoLocal, in recent history, unveiled the renderings that we'd seen from Hasbro if they were to bring and consolidate their headquarters here in Providence and literally tear down the Superman building and have new construction. Right. What's, in your opinion, the best and highest use of the building? You know, can retrofitting it perhaps achieve the goals of a new tenant or tenants coming in? Or would you like to see perhaps all new construction here downtown?
Well, as being the representative of the laborers union, I like demolition because that's all my jurisdiction. But I would really like, and I know that we've been talking about it for 4 or 5 years now, to try and find a repurpose for this iconic building. It would be a real shame to, you know, to tear it down. Plus, I think there is a considerable cost to have to tear this building down. It's built pretty damn well, and it would take a lot of manpower to remove it. So
we totally took a look at that when we did that piece. How would you bring that in between several buildings here? It's not.
I don't know. I mean, you've got that beautiful lobby, and then if you go down into the old vaults and what have you, I mean, there's a substantial amount of material in that building. Doors and bricks and blocks and vaults, and it would be a substantial undertaking. So I would think that, I know it's costly to repurpose it, but I would think that it's going to need, once we find what the interest is, an interested party to whether it's one or several, it's going to take some aspect of state and city assistance to make that happen. And it's not uncommon, again, to a lot of the buildings that you've seen repurposed right outside the studio here. They all have some aspect of that to make it happen. So, you know, if you're going to spend 20, 30 million to tear it down, and you can spend 20, 30 million to make the incentive to repurpose it, I say repurpose it.
Okay, well, I know you've got to get to City Hall, but while I still have you here, you said the number before, if the FAME proposal were to move forward. I mean, how many temporary construction jobs are we talking over? How much of a time frame?
No, I very seldom correct you, but I'm going to correct you on temporary jobs, because I do take offense when I'm at areas and people say, well, these are only temporary construction jobs. Well, you do an interview, and then when I leave, you do another one, right? So it's not a temporary.
No, it is temporary.
It's not a temporary interview. So we provide a service. So construction is we build something, and then we don't quit and retire. We go on and build something else. So.
I will say, so I saw folks saying that with recent job numbers and saying these are just.
And again, that's the stigma they give it.
Well,
right?
I'm not trying to do that. But how many jobs are we talking?
We're talking about a substantial amount of jobs. I mean, I haven't really looked into the weeds on the amount, but it would be substantial. This would be a substantial undertaking to build a building of that size, of 46 stories, the infrastructure necessary, the underground that would go in place to substantiate the weight, and the stories above it. You're looking at a pretty sophisticated construction project like you see in in Boston and New York and what have you. So they'll be considerable, and they would be multi-year. I'd probably say at least 2.5, 3 years to finish construction, and you'd be looking at hundreds of jobs at any one time, and over the life of the project, I'd say over 1,000.
Well, we'll see what happens tonight at Providence City Hall. Now, again, this is taking place at 5 for public comment. Do we expect a vote this evening?
They mentioned in one of the articles I've read, one of the reporters, that it could be put up for a vote. My guesstimate would be that something of this magnitude, and again, because there is a lot of information to digest, and they want to give the public, the due process and the respect to listen to everybody's concerns, I'd probably suggest there will not be a vote tonight.
Well, we're going to continue to keep an eye on it, because this is one of the big issues facing the city of Providence. And I appreciate your taking the time to come back in here, Michael Sabatoni.
And I always appreciate coming to visit.
Thanks so much. I'll let you go to City Hall. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for this afternoon's show. Again, the big news, the big battle going on right now. Providence City Hall at 5 o'clock, public hearing on the FAME Tower proposal on the 195 land. This pertains, of course, to the City Council's involvement for a potential for a height variance for this tower that we have discussed with Brent Runyon with the Providence Preservation Society, who expressed his concerns. Michael Sabatoni with the Building and Construction Trades, who are all in for it. I'd also like to thank Providence College for coming in to talk about getting their Andy Warhol Foundation grant, which will enable an exhibition beyond a Bauhaus to take place in 2019. You can catch that on Rewind here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. We'll be back tomorrow at the 3 o'clock hour. Of course, we had music at 2 p.m. today that you want to check out as well. Of course, read GoLocalProv.com and catch us on Facebook and Twitter in the meantime. Look forward to seeing everyone here back tomorrow, Thursday afternoon. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel.